28th, which if everything goes according to the schedule, we would not have any problem doing that. Credit approval, both of them are subject to final credit approval. That is mostly tied to just making sure the documents get done. Neither of these lenders put proposals out there if they've got any concern about the credit worthiness of the issuer. So it's really, I would say, that is a formality. It's been run through pretty high levels of credit, but they often just say, hey, we're not done till we see all the documents and everything is signed. And then finally, lenders counsel, that is who is representing them as lender. U.S. Bank would use an in-house attorney, whereas Truist would use a bond attorney, Chapman and Cutler, and there would be an additional cost for that attorney using Truist of $6,000. Okay? So what does this look like when we set it up as a loan? Page 5, go to the next slide if you don't mind. Again, side by side, U.S. Bank and Truist, the key assumptions. We are closing on February 20th. We're making annual payments of principal and interest beginning on 7/15 of 26. Final maturity is 7/15 of 35, 10 years. No payments are due until FY27. That's the budget you're going to be working on, and that's what's consistent with what we presented. A 3.99 rate versus 4.25. Borrowing 670 versus 676. Truist is a little higher because of their counsel fee. You can see the breakdown. You get the 570 for projects, the cost of issuance, and you can see the annual payments beginning in fiscal 27 down to fiscal 35. The average annual difference is Truist is higher by about 1,680, and over the 10-year term, that's 16,812, with the caveat that we have not, and we really can't measure the potential benefit of being able to prepay that loan without penalty. Now, you may never prepay this loan. You may never refund it. I'm not suggesting it's an absolute, but Truist has the ability beginning in year 4 to prepay it or refund it without penalty. And if you were to take advantage of that, there may be savings that you would recognize which would potentially close the difference there, the gap. But if both of these were to run their full 10 years, the difference in total payments over that term is just under $17,000. Okay? So go to the next slide. You've got two very good options. We talked about this at length with staff, and we've tried to put a little bit of rationale behind this recommendation. The recommendation is that we move forward with the Truist 10-year GO option, and although they did not provide the lowest interest rate, clearly we know that, there are some other considerations we think are worth discussion. The ability to do the earlier prepayment after 3 years without penalty. Partial prepayments are permitted annually, so you don't have to prepay the whole thing at one time. You can partially pay it down if you're ever in a position and a desire to do that. If a vehicle was destroyed or totaled, you could prepay the loan from insurance proceeds without any penalty. With U.S. Bank, they would charge you that 3% penalty. At closing, all the funds are dispersed to the town, and you can invest those funds where you think best. You can put it in the Commonwealth SNAP program. As of the time of that memo, that was yielding a 386. So that money is earning interest while you're waiting to purchase the vehicles. The documentation would be handled by the town or the town's consultants. With U.S. Bank, you're using their form documents. With the GO through Truist, your attorneys are drafting the documents, and you get to put things in those documents as you see fit. You're not working with someone else's. And then finally, just the GO structure versus the lease. There is slightly less documentation and associated record keeping. So that's the rationale, that's the proposal, the recommendation to move forward with Truist. We can discuss the merits of that. Certainly, there is, if you decide you're ready to do it, there is a resolution that you have that would anticipate moving forward with Truist, and there's a resolution for you all to consider if you decide you'd rather move forward with U.S. Bank. The calendar for this financing, if we can go up a little bit, tonight you will hold a public hearing, which is required for the general obligation. That in of itself is not approving any debt. We've presented the proposals. You all can discuss, and if you're ready to select a lender, you're able to do that as a council, and you would then presumably consider one of the resolutions, either the GO resolution or the lease resolution. If that were to happen, the documents would be drafted, and the working group would review those. We would coordinate getting signatures along the way. If we needed to come back at the February 4th meeting, we have the ability to do that, and we would be able to close by, mid to late February, which is consistent with what both lenders would require. You would be well within their deadlines. So happy to pause there, answer questions, come back after the public hearing if you'd like.
Will you just
whatever your preference is.
briefly review the appendix slide as well?
Sure. Legal debt margin, and what this is showing us is that within, local governments in Virginia, you have a legal debt margin that applies to general obligation bonds. And we're recommending moving forward with the general obligation bond, and in doing that, we want to be sure everybody's comfortable and aware that that is not putting you in jeopardy of going beyond your legal debt limit. And the chart on the right is showing the calculation that says, as of the end of June 30, 2025, we had $15.9 million of GOs outstanding on an assessed value of $643 million. The limit is 10%. That means you could have $64 million of GO debt outstanding and be within your legal debt limit. You've only got 15 or 16, so you have 48 million of legal debt limit capacity. We're talking about 670, 700,000. So if you were to do the GO, you can be very comfortable that that is well within the legal debt limit, and you have the capacity to do it. And then sort of tagging on to what we discussed at the last meeting, this new debt, if you just decide to move forward, will be included in your debt budget for FY27, and you'll be dealing with that as part of your FY27 budget process.
Heather, will you just scroll down just a little bit to the chart? Yeah, thanks. Okay. But I think to Mr. Wood's point is that the borrowing until we have spent it also creates an equal interest rate to the interest rate charged, more or less.
It's close.
Yeah. Okay.
If I understand correctly, what we're looking at, in essence, a potential loan would be 4.25. We get 4% on our money. In essence, we're paying $0.25 per 100 to borrow money. Is that about right?
Yeah, by keeping a like amount invested, I think that's a fair way to look at it.
And after 3 years, we could cash out at no penalty, correct?
Cash out at new penalty after 3 years.
Okay. And, what I would ask my fellow council members to remember is that while we're doing this consideration, take a look at the fact that there is a rescue squad building in our future. And what we should decide as a group is it a time to spend all of our cash when the cash has a marginal cost, or when the loan has a marginal cost? So that's all food for thought, but I just wanted to conceptualize all of that.
First, we still have to hold a public hearing, so that's what I'm gonna do next. All right. So, public hearings are formal processes. They follow the same rules and procedures that I outlined previously, and now I've lost that in my 121-page document here. Okay, so I'll just quickly review them for this public hearing as well. During public comments or hearings, we ask that certain guidelines be followed. Again, stand at the podium for the record, state your name and address, make your comments to a council as a whole. Then this particular public hearing, it is in regard to the option to finance these portions of our CIP projects. You can provide written statements as well. Town manager will get back to you on anything and speak clearly as we have what you, we want to hear what you have to say. And they are limited to 5 minutes per person. And so with that, we will open the public hearing. I got 8:58 PM on mine, and I gavel because it has to be recorded in the minutes on that time period. Is there anyone signed up for the public hearing?
First, we have Ms. Paige Williams.
Okay, welcome, Ms. Williams.
Hello again. Paige Williams, 1535 Irving Avenue. I just want to say that I feel like I'm in the twilight zone. I have no idea why anybody would be encouraging anybody to go into debt. Debt is not a good thing. You can sit and spin it however you want to, but I don't think it's a good idea. We were told a while back that there was going to be a trash tax fee and that we were going to start an enterprise fund. Did y'all not forget about that? And that money was supposed to be put in that fund to pay for a trash truck. That's how it got through, on the guise that the new trash tax was going to fund the trash truck. We probably have $300,000. Is that going to pay for all of the trash truck? No, but we have money to spend on other things. And yes, we do need a rescue squad building. I'm all for that, but does that mean we go into debt? Yes, we do need trash trucks. We don't want our streets full of trash, duh. But my dad's 90 years old, and he's never bought a vehicle through debt. He's paid cash for every one, and that's the smart way to do it. Can everybody do that? No. But again, we were told that money was going to go in an enterprise fund, and every time council asked the CFO, has that trash fund been started? No, we don't have money. No, we don't have money. Well, it's funny how you guys always find money when you need it, but you cherry pick things when you need money and when you don't. I don't agree. And one last thing, because I just get so upset and frustrated. Your money, the money you spend is not your money. It's the citizens of Colonial Beach's money. And I hope in the future, you guys, as a council, as a whole, can try to find more things to agree on than disagree on. Finding some common ground, you know, because things are a lot more pleasant. I bet you, all of you, have a lot more things that you agree on than you disagree on. So for future, I'm only 58 years old. I'm giving away my age. I'm not a genius. I'm not that wise, but I'm pretty wise. And for the future, try to find some common ground, because it's just so much more pleasant. Stop trying to beat up your fellow council people. You know, really, get over it. Thank you.
Next up is Mr. Nigel Long.
Welcome, Mr. Long.
Madam Mayor, councillors. 5 years ago, I bought a car, and I had the personal savings, the emergency fund, that could have meant I could have bought it in cash. But I chose not to because I wanted to manage my finances holistically to ensure that I kept an emergency fund, to ensure that I could do some things for my children. And so I balanced the benefit of borrowing the money against how overall I was going to manage my finances as I projected it them for the following years. And that's the same decision I think you're looking at now. You obviously have the cash to do that, to buy these things today. But by financing them and by identifying discrete items that you are financing, you are buying the opportunity to do other things and spend those monies on other priorities that the town may have if a hurricane comes through, or other things that you may need to do, a rescue squad building if we're still waiting to recover those funds that are sound as though they were stolen from us. So I would encourage you to take the financing offer so that you can use the monies available and the overall benefit of the town in the future 10 years. Thank you.
Next is Mr. Will Knuckles.
Welcome, Mr. Knuckles.
Evening again, Will Knuckles, 204 Monterey Bay Avenue. I do understand the concept about wanting to have alternatives, right? The question is whether or not you need to pull the alternative trigger now about saying like, oh, we've sort of run out of money and we need to go look for loan opportunities, or whether those opportunities should be something you consider exercising in the future. This does not seem to be like sort of like a make or break it expenditure as it relates to the health of the town. Or it's a piece, but it's sort of strange that this is what's risen to the top, that actually makes you think you need to switch from a pay-as-you-go mentality to a, seeking out to increase public debt that will then sort of go on to future years that have to sort of deal with this. If I'm looking at the payback expenditure chart correctly as it was depicted, yes, the interest rate sounds pretty small, but like this is one of those things that compounds, right? This is the whole idea about like how long do you wait and how long does it sit? But, according to this chart, if you wait 10 years, it costs us an extra $125,000, right? That's not chump change, right? So, generally, in my world, you generally want to do the pay-as-you-go approach as much as possible while having a robust understanding of borrowing opportunities and having that analysis being an ongoing tool in your toolbox that you're willing to pull the trigger on when that higher level calling happens, right? When you actually need to do the thing that says, yes, we flat out don't have money for this. But the good news is because we've kept our finances in good shape, we have that borrowing ability. So, right, so this is one of those, if the analysis came back and said, really nobody's going to want to give the town any money after this, then I'd say, yeah, you better run for it now, right? But nobody's saying the door is closing, right? So, and given the reporting of the debt load that we're cramping now, that should continue, right? There's nothing that sort of depicts it as this is the golden time to do this. So in that respect, I'd like you to sort of take a more conservative approach, consider doing neither of the above. By the way, this depiction tonight is how things often seem to come from the public's perspective, which is no is not really an option. We're trying to figure out which bank to get money from, right? And that's really the binary idea. But at the federal level, when we do these sort of analysis, there's always the null option, right? There's always this is just not a good idea. And there should be a robust analysis of costs and benefits to the no action option. We don't have any of that, right? We have a sort of a benefit and cost version of like action or action. And to me, that's insufficient analysis, certainly for taking on something that's going to cost the community more money. The idea of saying that, it's no big deal because we can just get back almost as much if we leave it in the investment. The amount of money that we're going to be obligated to pay back, that's fixed, right? The interest rate is fixed. The amount of money we can invest is a variable phenomenon, right? So it currently is coming pretty close. Can you guarantee that that investment opportunity is indefinite and will continue, even beyond this year or even within this year? No, you can't. So that's sort of, I think, a fallacy to say that like the delta between the two is small. It's small today, but that's sort of a irrational way of looking at it, because you wouldn't say, we'll invest it for a day, right? You have to say, is the opportunity cost of this, if we opt to not spend the money on these vehicles and leave it there for a long time, what is the delta between the two? And that analysis really isn't here. So it seems like you're lacking some pieces of the puzzle. My general hope on this, though, is for things as benign as this, that we really just build this into the planning thing. As I mentioned earlier about this whole idea about what our financial people are trying to get to is this big picture look at the town, and having you be able to have this at your fingertips constantly throughout the year to be able to make decisions like this, looking at everything together. This is another one of those. It's a snapshot deal, which sort of like adds on to other snapshot deals, which then sort of becomes an aggregate problem that we try and deal with in the long run. But I think you're close, and I don't understand, like, why now? Why January, right? What's the magic part of this? Particularly when the point was to say, like, we might not even exercise this. So I would encourage you to say, slow down a little bit more. You're on the cusp of having better information than you've had before, hopefully. I believe that when the town staff says they're going to do this, they're actually going to do it. And that'll be a great time to sort of revisit this, but revisit this not just as a standalone, revisit this holistically with the other issues that you're, in theory, going to be talking about as soon as tomorrow. So that doesn't seem to be a long time to wait. It just seems like your order just is a fluke of when things get put on the agenda and when we advertise in the newspaper.
Thank you,
This is
Mr.
where we are.
Knuckles. Anybody else like to come up? All right. I will close the public hearing at 9:09 PM. And mind you, we still have closed session after this. All right, do we have discussion?
Yeah, I think it might be a good idea to at least table it until we have a chance to chat tomorrow. I know which way I'm leaning, but I haven't made a decision yet. And honestly, I wouldn't be comfortable making a vote. And I would like to hear other points of view.
All right, we have a long meeting tomorrow. That's kind of, I think I could see that we're going to be talking about a lot of financial management.
Madam Mayor, one thing I do want to bring up is, in talking about this debt service, we also have to remember during our finance talks and stuff like that, the debt service that we're paying currently goes down every year. So although it says we're paying $80,000 or $82,000 a year, as the other debt rolls off, we're really paying like $20,000 a year more than what we're paying today. And that increases each year, right? So at some point between the 2035 or 36 timeframe, the debt that we're currently paying will assume this debt as well. So we're not going to be paying extra. And if we have funds in the savings, right, or 4% or 3.86%, that only alleviates more of that debt. So I hope people understand what I'm saying is, although it is a debt, and we're also collecting for trash, like the individual said, those funds that are going into our general account will be paying for the items that we're supposed to be paying for out of that trash, right? So we're paying for the items that we're getting with the funds that we're receiving. That's just a couple points that I wanted to make.
Yeah, when I think the trash fund was established, I never had the anticipation, I mean, it was never expected that we would cash fund a trash truck in 3 years. A trash truck is massive, but that it may cover the debt payment to fund the replacement truck was sort of a more realistic, I think, interpretation of that. And in the general fund, that those fees would potentially cover the debt fund for it. So just a little bit further explanation in that realm. I saw Mr. Larson, your hand? No, Mr. Williams?
Just a couple things. I'm not for debt, and that's just me personally. I've always been very fiscally conservative. In fact, this year, I'm personally working on paying off all my debt, and going as far as selling my boat and paying off everything I can so that I can be debt-free by summer. And so I'd be darned if I'm going to put the town in debt unless it's absolutely necessary. So, I mean, that's just my personal opinion. There's a couple things that haven't been considered, and me just doing my own personal research on debt recently as I'm trying to get out of it, is that there's a cost to debt that's not considered into the actual debt amount, the interest amount, and that's the risk that you take, and you take on debt personally or for your citizens of a town. There is a risk there. And there's also a cost that we're not considering, the town staff time managing all this debt. They're going to have to make the payments, they're going to have to look at all the penalties that could ensue if we miss something, or there's just a lot of things to consider. And so I want to just caution everybody to take that risk part of it in mind. I do support tabling this, as Rick Wood had suggested, so I'd be willing to do that. Otherwise, if we have to vote tonight, I'll be a negative. Thank you.
Talk about this tomorrow? Seeing some head nods?
Oh, I turned my mic off. I'm sorry. We're gonna talk about it tomorrow. All right. With that, I'm gonna move forward to the closed meeting language. Okay, guys, I move that the Town Council of the Town of Colonial Beach convene in closed meeting for the following purposes and discuss the following subjects, all which are exempt by Virginia law from public meeting requirements as indicated, namely pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A1 for discussion on performance of specific public appointees of the Town Council. Motion? So moved.
Second.
All in favor? All right, we're going to closed session, guys. 9:14 PM.